What are the different values of nature? How can we measure, understand, and account for these values in the decisions we make and actions we choose? Our planet faces a biodiversity crisis, but the decisions we make about how we value nature are a vital part of all the solutions. Economic and political decision-making is often dominated by narrow sets of values of nature, often market-based considerations, such as those that prioritize short-term profits and economic growth. But what about the many important non-market values of nature's contributions to people? Just because you can't easily put a price on how nature helps us to reduce climate change or prevent major coastal flooding, or how we define our cultural identities, doesn't mean these contributions to our well-being aren't valuable or that they shouldn't be considered. Biodiversity is being lost, and nature's contributions to people are being degraded faster now than at any other point in human history. This is largely because our current approach to political and economic decisions does not sufficiently account for the diversity of nature's values. Building on its landmark 2019 global assessment, the Intergovernmental Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, or IPBES, released a groundbreaking report in 2022 on the diverse values and valuation of nature, to help decision-makers better understand the very different ways that people conceive of and value nature, so that these can be taken into account in decisions and actions. The IPBES Values Report is deeply cross-disciplinary, drawing on more than 13,000 sources of scientific and expert information, including indigenous and local knowledge. Shortly after its launch, the report was already used by the 196 member states of the Convention on Biological Diversity to help shape the new global biodiversity framework, setting the international goals and targets for nature for the next decade. There is no shortage of ways and tools to measure the diverse values of nature. The IPBES Values Report explored more than 50 valuation methods and approaches. But it also found that not all these methods are used as frequently or to the same extent. Valuation is an explicit and intentional process. The type and quality of information that valuation studies can produce largely depends on how, why, and by whom valuation is designed and applied. This influences whose and which values of nature would be recognized in decisions, and how fairly the benefits and burdens of these decisions would be distributed. To help policymakers better understand the very different ways in which people conceive and value nature, the IPBES Values Report introduces a new, comprehensive system for categorizing the different values of nature. This new typology highlights how different worldviews and knowledge systems influence the ways we interact with and value nature, which include living from nature emphasizes nature's capacity to provide resources for sustaining livelihoods, needs, and wants of people, such as food and material goods. Living with nature has a focus on life other than human, valuing the intrinsic right of species to thrive independently of humans. Living in nature values the importance of nature as the setting for people's sense of place and identity. Or living as nature, seeing the world as a physical, mental, and spiritual part of oneself. The report also finds that many deeply held values can be aligned with sustainability principles, such as unity, responsibility, stewardship, and justice, both towards people and towards nature. Shifting decision-making towards the multiple values of nature is a really important part of the system-wide transformative change needed to address the current global biodiversity crisis. This entails redefining concepts such as development and good quality of life, and recognizing the multiple ways people relate to each other and to the natural world. The IPBES Values Report identifies 4 value-centered leverage points that can help create the conditions for the transformative change necessary for more sustainable and just futures. Assessing the diverse values of nature, embedding valuation in decision-making, reforming policies and regulations to internalize nature's values, shifting underlying societal norms and goals. The IPBES Values Report highlights that including a diversity of different perspectives on the values of nature in policymaking can help to promote fairer and more equitable policies. Recognizing and respecting diverse worldviews, values, and knowledge, such as those held by Indigenous peoples and local communities, allows policies to be more inclusive, which also translates into better outcomes for people and nature. Also, recognizing the role of women in the stewardship of nature and overcoming power asymmetries, frequently related to gender status, can advance the inclusion of the diversity of values and decisions about nature. The IPBES Values Report finds that shifting the focus in decision-making from narrow, mainly market-based, short-term values of nature towards more diverse considerations of values, especially those aligned with sustainability principles, would make an invaluable contribution to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals and to shifting all decisions towards better value-centered outcomes for all.